What I want to share, as Devon mentioned, is what I call my 38-minute mini webinars. And they've been responsible at this point for 10 million in sales. And that's really only over the last 3 years since we've properly been refining this and perfecting it, in a sense. And the journey began back in 2014. I first learnt webinars from a guy called Russell Brunson. Great guy. It started as a friendship. Then I joined one of his programs, and then we've been refining and changing the process ever since. This was back at a conference called Traffic and Conversion Summit, and a mutual friend introduced the two of us, me and Russell, and it was an introduction because he felt I had something that could help Russell. He was focusing on paid ads at the time and wasn't doing any free traffic stuff, and I'd gotten really, really good at free traffic strategies on YouTube. So a friend introduced us, said to Russell, there's this young lad called John, he might be able to help you and your clients. And so long story short, Russell got in contact and said, hey, can I fly you over to Boise, Idaho? And I was like, where the heck is that? I realized it's now the land of the potatoes, apparently. That's where that is. And so I went over and I taught his inner circle members how to do what I was doing with YouTube. I stayed around, I was a part of his mentorship, and I learned a lot from the guy. But since then, things have been changing quite a lot. And there's a lot of changes that you need to be aware of. And in fact, the whole webinar game is pretty much on its head now. And so if you're trying to do webinars like we used to do back in 2014, you're going to be making a big mistake. Over the course of the next 12 months or so, started to make some good money with webinars. This was a screenshot of my main Stripe account from 2015, January to December. Did £276,000. I thought that was pretty good, 20, 30K per month. Who would be happy with 20, 30K per month? Anyone in the room? A few of you. I was elated. I thought this was great. Really hitting on something fantastic using these webinars and selling my courses and my coachings. And things started to scale. I've grabbed a few screen grabs from that same Stripe account, and you can see the next year, this is 2016, just to show you where we started to scale this thing. You can see a spike. And that was in August, September, and October of 2016. We started hitting some six-figure months, so doing over £100,000 in sales, right? Who thinks that's pretty cool, doing over £100,000 in a month? Okay, well, here's the part where our hands go back down, and we don't like the process because we really weren't making that much money after everything was said and done. And this is the part that a lot of people don't really tell you. We talk about revenue, but you don't really hear much about the profit. You with me? So we can often see these numbers online. And how many of you have ever seen an online guru flaunting a number and you think, is that really the number? Is that the take-home number? How much of that was profit? Well, it's not great to share this with you, to be honest. But at this time, the numbers looked great, but the business wasn't great. The margins were so tight. The money we were spending on our ads, pumping it to the current webinar system that we were using, we were barely scraping by. Some months we were losing money, other months we might make a little bit. So don't be fooled sometimes by these big numbers. You've got to do your due diligence and figure out if that person's actually as legit as they sound from the numbers. And so what you'll notice here is that we actually went down into a dip. And then for the next couple of years, and this is embarrassing to share with you, but I figured for full transparency, let's do this. You can see then the following year, in 2017, in June, in our primary Stripe account, 6. And then in July, 7. In August, 4. So we went from having £100,000 months and then went down to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay? And I've got a team. We've got all this stuff going on. So I realized something had to change and had to change quite considerably. Still believed in webinars. I knew webinars was the vehicle, but the way in which we were going about it needed to change. Now, there's good news. Because the good news is then we have this huge spike that you can see that followed and has stayed pretty consistent now for the next 3 years. Okay? And the numbers have been going up and up and up. And as you can see, it's an onward trajectory, and the numbers are now absolutely fantastic. So you can see from May of 2020 to May of 2023, so this month, we're averaging about £300,000 cash collected. We're doing it at about a 40% profit margin. We've had one of our best months last month than we've had in the last 12 months. We did £750,000 in revenue. we had £550,000 in cash collected, and that was at a 40% profit margin. So the numbers now are amazing. And it's because of what the new type of webinars that we're using now. So the big question is, well, what changed? What's different? What happened when you went into that dip? What happened as you've come back out? Well, that's what I want to share. Would that be interesting?
Yes.
Okay. Well, then let's do it. So there's a difference between traditional webinars and then what I like to call these high ticket webinars, okay? And so let's draw this out. Let's actually spend some time understanding the difference between a traditional webinar and a high ticket webinar. So everything starts with, and I'm just going to put T for traffic. Everything starts with traffic. And we're pushing that traffic into a webinar presentation. Let's assume this is our webinar from start to finish, okay? Webinar from start to finish, and out the other end, we're trying to sell something. Pretty standard so far, right? Traffic into a webinar, sell something out the other end. The traditional way that this would be done is you would be selling something for maybe $500, maybe $1,000, or £500 or £1,000. This webinar is going to be something like 90 minutes long, okay? And so you'd be driving traffic into a webinar that's about 90 minutes long, and out the other end, you're going to sell them a product. This webinar typically doesn't have much value. It doesn't have that value proposition that we've been talking a lot about, right? You can see, have you already seen how each presentation's building on the next, right? Like I talked about time. I didn't even plan that with Matt. I thought that was perfect when Matt came up and talked about the trust timer. Makes so much sense, right? It's about having that time with your prospects, okay? Well, what happens here in this webinar is you're not getting the combination right that I talked about in my first presentation. Time is ticked off. We have time, 90 minutes. But the value is oftentimes lacking. There's a very strict way of putting together a webinar when it leads to an offer, something that you are selling, okay? And oftentimes it's not actually valuable. It's really just a glorified sales presentation for 90 minutes. Who knows what I'm talking about? You've been on one of those, yeah? So here's what started to happen, and here was the problem. Traffic costs started to go up. Started to get far more expensive. I'm so conscious of I'm going to fall off this stage. So traffic costs started going up. And so you might, in the beginning, spend, let's say, $100. $100, and you'd make a $500 sale, right? Everything's looking good. We're 5 to 1. Maybe we've got some extra expenses, but profit's still looking pretty good. Now, from 2014 into 2015 into 2016 and beyond, traffic costs were going up. So now, a year later, it's costing you $200 to make a $500 sale. Nothing else in here is changing. Conversions aren't going up. It's just that traffic's now costing more. So what happened is that we would get to a point where we are spending $500 to make a $500 sale. We're breaking even, and there's nothing else in the back end at all. So the business is pointless, right? Spending $500, making $500, and we've got all this stress and headache. So it wasn't working, okay? So then we started to add things on the back end. We're like, okay, well, afterwards, maybe we'll sell them something else for $1,000, and we'll try to ascend people through and add to our average value per customer, something that we talk a lot about. But then traffic was going even more expensive. So you're spending $750, so now you're chasing your tail, you're losing money, and you're trying to make it up on the back. And so now you're in a deficit for a number of weeks or months. Making sense? Doesn't sound too sexy, does it? So I'm pretty darn good at webinars. I'm just going to say it. And even now, I still every now and again go back to this style of offer just to test it out. And it's really hard to make it work. My team will attest to this. We recently did this where we tried again, and I put everything I know about webinars back into this model to try it again, and we couldn't make it work. We could not generate a customer for less than we're spending on our advertising. And that's coming from someone who's doing this and doing it really, really well, and I understand the game. I will give you for your notes, if you want to write this down, there is really only one exception, and that is if you're going out to a warm market. That's the one main exception. You know, I see some of my clients around the room nodding because we've talked about this at length, okay? What I'm referring to here, just so we're all on the same page, I'm referring to generating new customers, generating new clients. I'm talking about going there with traffic generation, with Facebook ads, YouTube ads, people that have not heard of you before, and invite them to a webinar. You with me, right? okay? How many of you, by show of hands, have a warm market? You have an email list, social media following. Okay, great, awesome. So for you, you could think about still selling a course if you wanted to for about that price point, and you would make some sales from your email list. Happy days. Or make some sales from your social media following. Happy days. But as soon as you try to automate that webinar and run it out to cold traffic, you'll see your numbers plummet. Because the value and the trust timer, as Matt would put it, has already been ticking for quite a considerable period of time. That's why they're on your email list. And if they're on your email list and they're opening your emails and registering for a new webinar, it shows that they're still engaged. Make sense? So that's the only exception. So there's a few things that's changed. There's a few things that changed to make this what I call a high-ticket webinar. So we've got traffic, same as always, but our webinar presentations are much shorter. Rather than being 90 minutes, our webinar presentations are only going to be about 30 to 40 minutes. Now, I'm going to break all this down. I'm literally, as Devon said, I'm actually going to break down my entire framework, the timings, how long things need to be. We're going to get into it, okay? So hopefully you're ready for a heavy, heavy session because we're going to get into this. But these need to be shorter now. Good. I got a whoop. I like that. Where is that whoop from? Show me your hand. Yeah, nice. Can I hear it again? Louder. Yeah. Okay. So yours was better than mine. I'm never doing that again. That was squeaky. So 30 to 40 minutes is how long our webinars want to be. Not 90 minutes. 30 to 40 minutes, okay? Out the other end, you can probably guess what is coming, right? Am I going to draw a dollar symbol or am I going to draw a picture of a phone? Yes, okay? Not a very good one, so that's going to do it. So we've got our phone. The webinars lead to a phone invitation to speak with us and book a call, and off the back of that phone call, we're going to sell our program, but we must put our prices up. How many of you are selling something for at least $2,000 already? Put your hands nice and high. Awesome. This will already work for you, okay? The rest of you that didn't put your hands up, you need to start getting your prices up. Some of you will be restricted, I understand. Maybe you're selling a physical product that really does have a hard value. But if you're selling courses, coaching, services, agency, anything of that nature where you're selling your knowledge, there is price fluctuation that you can play with. And it oftentimes comes down to a confidence boost to get that price up. So we really need to start selling for less than $2,000. Not less, whoop. More than $2,000. And what this means is if we're doing this, we can front a higher cost for traffic because a few things are happening. Number one, the webinars are shorter, more people are getting to the call to action, more people are booking calls, and you'll actually find that when you're all said and done, you'll actually convert a huge number of people that book these calls to closing if you do it right, okay? If you are automating a $1,000 course on a webinar, at scale, to cold traffic, you might expect a 2 to 3% conversion. But what we're finding is we're getting 20% of people booking calls, and of that 20%, we're getting 30 to 40% of people to buy our offer. So you can do the math in your own time, but it works out to be a greater return on investment. And so we can actually be profitable again out the front end. Many of our clients, and they're sat here in the room, many of our clients are doing something very similar to the numbers I'm putting here on the board. Spend 500, make a 2K sale. Okay, so now we're back at more like 4 to 1, which is far more sensible. And then you can still do the other stuff, which I don't have time to talk about in this presentation, but we will build upon this over the next 3 days about some of the stuff that you can do on the back end. Your email list is so valuable. It's an amazing asset, and you need to understand how to use it right. So we'll make some time for that, and you can start adding more value on the back end. So we understand the difference between traditional and then high-ticket webinars, yes? Perfect. So would you like the framework? Yes. Let's do it, okay? So, you might be wondering, and if we could get just my slides back up for a second, you might be wondering, if we're selling on the phone, then why don't we just skip the webinar altogether and go straight to the phone conversation, okay? And it's very, very simple. And again, I've put together some very fancy keynote presentation slides to illustrate this. It's about as far as my skills go, okay? I call it the conversion timeline, okay? And you might even want to just draw this out or just remember this, okay? The conversion timeline, similar to the type of stuff that Matt was talking about, we need to get people from a 0 where they have never heard of you before, okay? Never, ever heard of you before, all the way to a 10 which is take my money, right? If someone's at a 10, they're fully sold on you, you know, what it is that you do, your price point, they're ready, okay? They're literally going to be handing you their credit card or giving you the numbers to punch in. So we need to get people up to this 10 to acquire a client, right? If we eliminate a sales funnel process like a webinar from the vehicle at all, and we just go straight to booking calls, maybe you're getting them to a 2. We're getting them from a 0, they haven't heard about you. Okay, now they hear about you. Maybe they've heard just a little bit, and now they're on the phone with you. Now, hopefully what you'll understand from this and what's being illustrated is that you've now got to get people from a 2 to a 10 on the phone. How many of you have had an enrollment conversation on the phone that was actually really tough to get someone across the line? Yeah? And maybe you heard some no's, you heard some let me think about it. All these things start to come to the surface and you don't close on the phone, not necessarily because you're bad. You might actually be quite good on the phone, but it's because you have to get people from a 2 to a 10 on that phone conversation. That puts a lot of pressure on the call. So look, there are different strategies that work for different people. You're here to learn from me and then my team of experts that I bring in front of you. And this is the stuff that we do, which I think works better. There are other people that will teach this. There are other people that will say, well, look, just use a very simple 5-minute video and go straight from that to book a call, and then we just close on the phone. That is putting so much pressure here. It's going to be very, very hard to do. If you want the easier path, if you want the Lewis Smith path of living your best life now and just, spending a very short period of time on your business, then we need to aim to get people up to a 6 or a 7 before we speak to them. Sometimes you'll get people on the phone and they'll already be a 10. Fantastic. That will happen, okay? Get Matt Wilson on the phone, he's going to give you some money, okay? Get me on the phone, I'm going to give you some money. I just saw an ad for that t-shirt launcher and I thought, yeah, fine. So I'm like that as well. But the game is to get people to a 6 or a 7, on average, and that's where a webinar comes in. A webinar allows us to do that. There are so many things that we need to achieve along the line of the webinar from start to finish that is essentially the 0 to the 6 or a 7. Tracking with me? Yes. This is what we want. It makes the conversations easier. I like your energy. Okay, so here it is. Here's my exact framework for successful high-ticket webinars. So I'm going to take you through this start to finish. I spent a long time refining this, and as I go through this little timeline of the webinar, it might seem simple. You might go, that's pretty simple. You've drawn a few lines through the start to finish and told us what should be in each, but just understand that this has been refined for quite a number of years. I've chopped things around. I've changed the length of time, bless you. I've changed the length of time, shorter, longer, intros at the beginning, or do something else at the beginning and then move to hooking it. There's lots of different ways that I've chopped this up. This is the framework. Now, we haven't got time to go into every single slide of a presentation, but you can, within each little section of the framework I'm going to teach you right now, you can move things around. It doesn't matter. You've got a bit of a playground there out within the little frameworks that I'm going to share with you as we go along. So, first things first, 30 to 40 minutes, we found that to be perfect. If we go shorter than this, if we do 15, 20-minute webinars, we don't feel we've had enough time to build connection, to provide value, to do all the things that we want to do. If we go past 40 minutes, which we used to teach 60-minute webinars, and they were working, nothing wrong with it, but I just like to make things easier if I can. So we tried shorter ones, and it worked, and then we tried to go even shorter, it didn't work. So we've stayed at about 30 to 40 minutes. If it doesn't need to be 60 minutes, why do it, right? It's extra slides, it's extra work, it's just more difficulty. So 30 to 40 is perfect, okay? Now there's 3 main sections of the presentation. 3 main sections. Now, I would like to say at this point that a lot of these tips are transferable outside of webinars, okay? So a lot of this stuff that I'm breaking down, you might be doing a stage presentation and you want to follow something of a framework. Maybe you're doing a Facebook Live, maybe you're doing a YouTube video, whatever the case may be. There's stuff in here that you can take away from this. But 3 main sections to the presentation. The first is setting the stage. Setting the stage is about 5 to 10 minutes, okay? So if you're following along, if you're writing this down, setting the stage is about 5 to 10 minutes. Then we've got the training. And the training's about 20 minutes. And then we've got what I call the hand raise. You might not be able to see that at the back, but it's called the hand raise, and that's 5 to 10 minutes, okay? So let's break this down further, all right? Each section that's divided by the green lines for the top 3 Within those, I've broken them down into the smaller sections of the framework as well. Now, this is where you need to make sure that you keep these in the right order, okay? And then they will work very, very well. And what will happen is this will become second nature. In fact, as many are already doing, you're very welcome to take a picture of the screen, because you might actually want to print this out and just put it up in front of your desk when you're doing a webinar, because as you're writing slides, you'll be going, right, okay, have I done the hook? Okay, it's about 2 to 3 minutes for a hook. Great. Have I done this next? Have I done that next? So just you can keep things in the right order. So the first part of the setting of the stage is the hook. And the hook is incredibly important. In the hook, we are getting straight into the content. We are getting straight into the reason why they are here, what they're going to learn, and what's in it for them. So I don't want to hear any of you starting a webinar and saying, hey, it's, John Penberthy here, and look, it's a lovely sunny day, and I'm this and I'm that, and how was your day? Hey, let me know in the chat, how was your day? All of that stuff is a complete waste of time. Complete waste of time. That might work if you're doing a warm webinar. Your email list, social following, fine. To a cold audience that have only just heard about you on a YouTube ad or whatever the case may be, they've registered, they're thinking, okay, I might go to that thing. They've shown up. Many of those people that have showed up to the webinar are not committed to sticking around. How many of you understand that, right? They're not committed to sticking around. Many of us in the room right now will register for a webinar and we'll think, I'll check it out. First couple of minutes, not for us, we leave, yeah? It's as simple as pressing that little red X. If you didn't like my presentation here today, I hope you do, but if you didn't, it would be harder for you to leave. You'd probably think, I'll endure it until the break, and then I'll run away, right? But on a webinar, it's so much easier. Just press that little red X, ding, you're gone. No one knows, you just slipped away. So we have to work really hard to keep their attention and keep them focused and keep them locked on us. So the hook is 2 to 3 minutes, and we get straight in. Read the title of your presentation. Hey, welcome to today's presentation. Thanks for being here. We're going to dive into, read off the headline. Here's what we're going to be able to achieve as a result of being on here. Here's why you should listen. Here's why you should pay attention. Okay? All of that stuff needs to be done very, very quickly. All right? So no dilly-dallying, no wasted time. We get straight into the hook. Okay? That's 2 to 3 minutes. After that, the next section is talk about them, okay? It's talk about them. Can you see this at the back? Maybe not. Is it a bit too small? A bit small. Okay, I'll just tell you what it is. So that next one that I'm pointing to, luckily I've got my red arrows there. That next one says talk about them. Talk about them. So what we're going to do for the next 2 to 3 minutes is we are going to do exactly what I mentioned in my opening presentation. We're going to use displayed what? Understanding. Very good. So we're going to spend 2 to 3 minutes saying, if you're on this webinar right now, chances are you feel like this. Describe how they're feeling. Describe something they're going through. Maybe you've tried this and it didn't work. Maybe you've been struggling for a number of years now. Maybe this is the type of life you're living right now and you're wanting to do this, you're wanting to do that. We literally just spend 2 to 3 minutes talking about them. And we just take all of that homework that we did in the opening session, and then we just put it here in 2 to 3 minutes. You with me? Yes. Okay. Then, and only then, can we move to the next one that for those in the back, it says talk about us. Talk about us. Now is your moment to talk about you. And again, I've played with this a lot. This is where I find the placement works the best. Some people talk about themselves too prematurely. Maybe you've seen it, right? You're on a webinar and, hey, thanks for being on today's webinar. I'm going to teach you this, this, this. And just so you know, I've been featured in Forbes, been featured in Success Magazine. I speak on stages all around the world. I'm friggin' amazing, right? People don't care. It's way too early for that. Way too early, okay? So we have to do this. Hook, talk about them. Oh, okay, this person gets me. Boom, I'm in, I'm hooked in. Okay, now I get to experience why I should care about this person who's teaching me. You with me? Yeah? Okay, so that and only that is when we start to talk about them, okay? Then we get into the training. Now, I break up the training into 3 WNH points. Who knows what that stands for? Oh, very good, very good. Got some clients in the house. Wow, not how. Write that down. Wow, not how. We're going to dive into this in a second, but we break it down into 3 training points. Now, here's what I like about this system here, because with traditional webinars, because everything is leading to a sale, you have to do things in a particular way, which doesn't actually provide value. That's the way it's traditionally taught. Okay? Whereas what we have the ability to do now is, because we're not actually going to be selling anything, we can actually provide some genuine value in this. Okay? It's a short presentation. It's 20 minutes. For most of you in the room, you could not teach your full system in 20 minutes. You wouldn't be able to do it, right? For a client to spend some time with you, and for many of you, how many of you in the room, the actual impact of you working with a client happens with some one-to-one, some tailored work that you do together, yeah? So awesome, so there's loads of you. So think about this. You could give information here, and if they want to implement it with you, they join your coaching, right? So you're now free to actually give some goods here. You're free to give some good stuff. And they'll get some value from you, and they'll love it. And the decision that they're now going to make is, do I want to take what I've just learned seriously? If I do, I'm going to work with this person. So we're actually free to give some cool stuff, which really, really helps, okay? So that's, whoops, my mistake. And then, we're going to go into this first. I'm going to come to the hand raise in just a moment. So we've got the 3 wow, not how points, okay? This is so important that it's something that inside of, like with my private clients, like these are the types of messages that we get just about this. So Simon Townsend, he's done 1 million with his webinar now. He said, I've said it before and I'll say it again, the wow, not the how is absolutely priceless. And at the bottom it says, thanks, John, I'm studying this lesson really, really hard. We had Polo that said the same thing. The wow, not the how was the most transformational thing they learned. I'm about to teach it to you as well, okay? So the lesson that they were just talking about is the lesson. I'm literally taking those slides and I'm hijacking them for you. So what exactly is the wow, not the how, okay? Well, the wow, not the how is this. We want to teach them stuff that gives them the wow feeling, that makes them go, wow, that's good, wow, that makes sense, wow, that's exciting, wow, that's inspiring, but doesn't go so far as to give them the specific hows, okay? So the idea is giving light bulb moments. We're giving them stuff that's genuinely exciting, genuinely maybe not transformational, but genuinely exciting and valuable, but not enough that they can actually go and implement it. The way I like to think about it is, imagine you have, let's say, who's into property in the room? Anyone into property investing? Yeah, a few of you, right? So if you wanted to get into property, maybe there was a friend of yours who is a property investor, and they're very, very successful. And they offer to go and take you out for a coffee, right? And you go out for a coffee and you're having a bit of a chit chat, and they're just talking about some of this terminology that they're using, right? Rent to rent, service accommodation, BRR, all this kind of stuff. And you're trying to soak it all in, and they're telling you how amazing property is. And they're dropping in a couple of tips and tools. You're thinking, gosh, I'm not going to remember all this, but this is so exciting. You leave that coffee date, maybe it was an hour, right? You would leave that coffee date thinking that was valuable, would you not? Yeah. Do you know how to implement it? No. You don't know how to go and get the mortgage, find the right deal, search for the right stuff on Rightmove. You don't know how to do the specifics, but that doesn't take away from the fact that you were provided value. Okay? You with me? So don't mistake the wow for being not valuable, and the how is the only valuable part. Actually, they're both valuable, but for different reasons. The wow is opening their eyes. The wow is getting them excited. The wow is showing them the path that they may now want to take. And they go, okay, I've got to decide now. This sounds really good. I've had epiphanies. I've had light bulb moments. It sounds great. Now I'm deciding if I want to go down that path. So a way to remember this is that they attend the webinar for the wow, and they buy your program for the how. That's the way to remember this. They attend your webinar for the wow. They buy your program for the how. Okay? So we break up the training section into 3 parts, okay? And so I'll give you an example of this. And this was when I did one of my first webinars and actually did it wrong. So I was selling this program called 2 Traffic Mastery that some of you in the room said that you remember, okay? Many years ago. And these were my 3 training points. And this was me getting it wrong. This was me implementing the how. So what I did was, I had this understanding of, okay, I want to do a webinar that's highly valuable and actually gives them some great stuff so that the law of reciprocity kicks in and that they want to do something back. And so I just gave them some goods. in my first training point, I showed them how to find keywords to target. And in my webinar, I'm literally showing them screenshots of, look, go to the Google Keyword Planner, find this type of keyword. This is how many searches you're looking for. Here's this, here's that. Great, getting value? Yes, awesome. Number 2, here's how we shoot some videos that we can use to position for those keywords and get all of that traffic. And so now I'm teaching them how to do the videos and how to record them and what to say, all this kind of stuff. Getting value? Yes, awesome, great. Number 3, here's how to get some of those videos ranked for these keywords. I haven't got time to show you all of my backlinking strategies, but here's a couple to get you started. Getting value? Yes, awesome. So at the end of the presentation, I asked the audience, this was back when we used to do live webinars, are you getting value from this presentation? And the answer was a resounding yes. Everyone was saying, yes, I'm absolutely loving it. It says, awesome, I'm getting yes, all the way down the presentation. And then at the end, I make my offer. And I make my offer for 2 traffic mastery. I go through my slides, and I'm thinking, it's going to be money day. We're going to get so many people signing up for this thing because I can see the chat boxes going crazy. And I make my offer, and I'm trying to keep my cool as I check my checkout processor on the side, and I'm like, and nothing's coming in. I'm thinking, it's broken. Refresh, still broken. Keep your cool, I'm answering questions. Oh, yeah, what's happening? I'm freaking out. I didn't make a single sale. And I didn't know what was going on. I didn't make a single sale. And it wasn't until I realized where I was going wrong. I was giving too much of the how. And as a guy called Jay Abraham would say, anyone know Jay Abraham? Some of you? Amazing, amazing guy. So Jay Abraham was talking about the fact that if you try to teach people your entire system and give them specifics of how to do it in such a short period of time, you're doing both you and them a disservice. You're doing them a disservice because they're going to leave with a false sense of hope that they've got what they need to implement. And you're going to do you a disservice because you're going to leave a client to go off and do their own thing. Because they've got this false sense of security, they're going to go try without you and you haven't landed the client. So both of you are losing out. So this is where I started to come up with the why, not the how, and thought there must be a different way that we can do this. So I read a lot of books, studied a lot of people, downloaded a lot of webinar presentations, and studied my competition, and started to pick up on some of these clues. And then this is how I transformed my webinar presentation and the training points to make them wow, not how. And these are the exact training points I used, by the way. We now make them a little bit longer and sexier. But the first one was why keyword traffic is so valuable. So rather than its counterpart, the how, was how to find keywords, now it was why keyword traffic is so powerful. So why would you want to be at the top of Google? What's different about that traffic there than traffic from other sources? Light bulbs are going off. Wow, I've learned something. I've learned what traffic is better than others, and I've learned why. Yeah, you with me? Yeah. Making sense? Second one, why videos are so much easier than they might have thought. I'm not teaching them how to shoot videos. I'm saying here's why videos are actually easier. You can do it on your mobile phone, or back then, gosh, believe this or not, back then I used something called a Kodak ZI8 camera. Does anyone remember a Kodak ZI8? Got a couple of people. Lynn, nice to see you. This was an old camera that had a USB that would flip out from the bottom. No one, a few of you remember that? Okay, well, anyway, just me. How am I the dinosaur in the room? I'm sorry. So I was teaching them how to show a picture of that. But like, you can use this camera, or you can just use your phone. And so they're going, okay, this is amazing. I don't have to have fancy camera equipment or a green screen, all that kind of stuff. And then the third thing was the benefits of being at the top of Google. So I'm talking about, look, if you get the right type of keywords and you shoot these simple videos, you can get them positioned on the front page of Google. And here's how much traffic could start to come in. And here's how much of that traffic could start to convert into sales. And so by the end of these 3 training points, their eyes are open, their jaw is hitting the floor, and they've had a lot of value delivered. And so equally, at the end of this presentation, I've asked the audience, I've said, how many of you are getting value from this presentation? All the yeses were coming in. So if you're hearing this and thinking, John, is that truly valuable? It's not valuable to you. It doesn't seem valuable to you because you know what you know. You've got to remember that. You know what you know. You might have had a conversation with a friend at some point, or you might bump into someone here at the corridor. That's why you should talk to people. You might bump into someone and share just a little something in a conversation, and their jaw hits the floor. You're thinking, really? That? Like, that's obvious. It's not obvious to everyone. You with me? There are things that you know that are just obvious to you because it's what you do. To other people, it's not. To other people, they are wow moments. And those wow moments are valuable, okay? So at the end, I'm getting all these yeses. People are loving it. People are literally saying, this is the best webinar I've ever been on. I'm thinking, really? Because this was new to me. Okay, great. And then I make the offer, sales coming in. And that webinar went on to do $1 million. It went from a webinar that did 0 sales to producing $1 million. Not in one go. That would have been a nice day. But no, we're not quite there yet. We're working on that. But yeah, this one did really well and did $1 million, okay? So hopefully now you're understanding the wow, not the how. Is that, you understanding it a little bit clearer now? Yeah? Okay, great. We're not done. We want to sprinkle these buying triggers into each wow, not how point throughout the presentation. So we want to sprinkle these in. These are things that are going to help them get closer to making a buying decision. So the red X on the other side is someone not ready to invest, and the green money bag on the other side is they are ready to invest. So this is how we get them on that journey. We move them across, is we sprinkle these things in, okay? So it's things like we want to excite them. You want to build your authority in different ways. I've got particular slides in my presentation where I drop them in. I plant things all the way through that might seem like they're just there for no reason, but actually they're there by design to build authority, but I'm not being so overt. I'll give you an example. This will sound overt, but it's because I'm trying to teach you something. So I've spoken on stage alongside a guy called Les Brown. Does anyone know Les Brown? Okay, awesome guy. It was actually the event that Lisa mentioned that Najahi put on over in Dubai. 3,000 people there. It was an awesome event. So I'm speaking alongside Les Brown, okay? Now, if I was to just say that as overtly as I've just said it here, you might think, a bit of a douchebag, right? Just wanting to just power trip. Yeah, I've spoken with this person. I've spoken alongside Gary Vaynerchuk. And if I just drop all these things in, it's obvious that I'm just saying it, so that you know, okay? Whereas if I can find a way to just sprinkle it into the training somewhere, if I can find a way to drop it in and tell a story that isn't designed, well, it kind of is designed, but it's not supposed to just sound like I've spoken alongside Les Brown, but it's more embedded in a story. It comes across way better. So the example I give is I show a picture of me backstage with Les Brown because I actually taught him some webinar stuff, and him and his team were literally blown away. Ended up having a call with Les and helping him through some of this stuff. So I show a picture, and I say, you see the stuff I'm talking about already? How many of you have heard of Les Brown? Yeah, Les Brown. So I was working with him backstage with him and his team at this event in Dubai that we were speaking at together. And I was teaching him some of this stuff about webinars. And him and his team were blown away. But it's because Les is in the traditional speaking from stage circuit. So to him, it was completely eye-opening. And I want that same experience for you. I want your eyes to be open. So that's what we're going to be going through. And then I move on in the presentation. Now, you've heard that I spoke alongside Les, but that wasn't the main point that I was getting at. Does that make sense? So you can find these creative ways. It's storytelling. You can find these creative ways of telling stories in the training that's planting some of these seeds, but not being so overt. It works incredibly well. This is actually quite high level, but I'm bringing it down to a way that you can all understand because I can now condense it because we've been doing it for so long. So there's other ones on here. I mean, best to just take a picture, to be honest. But all of these things you want to be dropping in, like, mental shifts, making sure that if they're thinking a certain way about themselves or the problem or the solution, we need to start changing the way that they are, approaching it. A big one that I do want to point out specifically is handle objections, okay? Or more to the point, I should probably change my slides. More to the point is pre-handle objections, okay? How many of you enroll clients on the phone? Okay, you can use this on the phone too. And in fact, this is why the webinar really helps, because all the things, all the obstacles that would come up on the phone, we're going to spend some time on this. This is not planned. If you're on the phone and you get a no, okay, let's be honest, nice and high, hands in the air, who's ever had a no on the phone, okay? You should not bury your head in your hands and be really upset about it and then just, hope the next one's better. Okay? No, we need to make a note of why didn't they join? What was the reason? What were they saying? Why did they not pull the trigger? Making a note. And you know what's going to start to happen? The next call, you make a note. Next call, Same reason as the first person, right? Putting a tally on that. It's 2 for that one, 3 for that one. And you're going to start to have a notepad of the main reasons why people are saying no, specifically to you and your offer. And now guess what? We throw it into the webinar. We pre-handle it. So the thing that was going to stop them on the phone, when it comes up in the moment, we want to pre-handle it. So maybe it was that they said, this won't work for me, and they just didn't have the belief that it would work for them. Well, who were they? What was their situation? Where were they getting stuck? Right, I'm going to put a slide or two in the webinar that addresses that this works for this. Make sense? This is great stuff. So, we want to be breaking down limiting beliefs as well. They're probably going to have limiting beliefs about why this won't work for them, or why you're not the right person to teach them. They're going to have all these limiting beliefs as well. We need to identify them. We need to be dropping them into the presentation, and simplification too. People won't buy because something sounds complex. So in the webinar, if what you were talking about sounded really complicated, they won't book a call. If they book a call and the way you're talking about it on the phone sounds complicated, they won't sign up. And so we need to simplify the process in the way we describe it and talk about it to get the phone call. And then when we speak to them, of course, we need to keep that simplification as a theme, okay? So those are the things we want to be sprinkling throughout, okay? Now, really, the goal of these 3 wow, not how points is we want them to say this in their head. Okay, well, they might say it out loud, but no one's going to hear them. This person has what I want, and I need to take action. This person has what I want, and I need to take action. Okay, that's really what we're trying to get to. Okay, and that's the wow, not the how. It's so important that you get this part right, and it might take a bit of refinement. It might take trying the webinar, seeing how you get on, learning from where people are dropping off, learning from how the conversations are going on the phone out the other end, and then redoing the webinar, making some tweaks. But once you get it, you get it. Unless you're a unicorn like Fez. Fez, put your hand up real quick. Fez's first webinar, we will all be jealous of this guy. First webinar, I even just absolutely crushed it. I even told him to launch 2 to 3 ads to start. He did 1. He didn't follow my advice, and his first ad in his first webinar just crushed it. He's done like £400,000, something like that, isn't it? Let's give Fez a hand. It's amazing. So he's going to come up, and he's actually going to teach you this tomorrow. He's going to talk about some of the things that he did. You know, when I have successful clients on that, I'm like, right, get up on the stage, share back with us. And so sometimes your first webinar will crush it, but other times it might take a bit of refinement, okay? Top tip, lists work great. Lists work great. So if you are struggling for a piece of content, keep in mind this is 20 minutes. So each content section is only going to be 6 to 7 minutes, right? Now, even if you're having a bit of a brain blank and you can't think, how can I fill 6 to 7 minutes? Then just use a list. Say, here are the 7 biggest mistakes and for me, it's going to be coaches, right? So I'm going to say 7 biggest mistakes that struggling coaches are making that's costing them new clients, right? Now, I only have to talk about each mistake for 1 minute. I can have a list of 7, and I can work through them, and I've provided value, given them those wow moments, and I've managed to get through content really easily. Make sense? Yeah? So lists really, really help. And then finally, we've got the hand raise. Now, the hand raise is 5 to 10 minutes. It's 5 to 10 minutes. You might be saying, well, if it's just an invitation, if the hand raise is just, yeah, okay, I'm in, I want to book a call, okay? Why is it 5 to 10 minutes? Because it's not as simple as just book a call. There needs to be a bit of a process there. We need to do something that I call, you might want to write this down, inspire change. So at this point, before you go into an invitation to book a call, you want to inspire change. You want to say, look, if you've been watching this webinar presentation with me today and you've enjoyed the content, you've gotten value from this content, now might be the moment where you need to make a really big change. You've got a choice. You could leave this webinar and you can go back to doing what you were doing before, okay? Or you might say, this is the moment. I'm fed up of feeling like this. I'm fed up of having this. I want this solution. And so if that's you, I'd like to present an opportunity. And then you go into describing the opportunity to have a chat with you, one-to-one, to have a conversation, to figure out, and this is where you actually want to drop this in, whether becoming a coaching client is the right fit for both of us. what you don't want to do, and I'm going to save you a big headache right now. You want to write this down. Don't make that conversation that they're booking sound too valuable. You can make it valuable, but you don't want to make it sound valuable, okay? The reason why you don't want to make it sound valuable is because they then come onto that phone call thinking it's a coaching session, not that it's an enrollment conversation to see if they're a good fit. Making sense? So if you start saying, hey, let's book a one-to-one and I'll try and help you. And we'll figure out, what's going wrong here. And I'll give you some of my tips and my strategies and we'll create this and we'll create that. If you say all of that type of stuff, they're going to come on not expecting an offer. And then when you make an offer, there's going to be resistance. So instead, at this point, the invitation is very clear that this is an invitation to explore coaching, to see if this is a good fit. And if it is, I can let you know what it looks like to work with me. And we can go from there, right? So that's why they'd be booking calls. Making sense? Yes. Yeah? Is this helpful stuff? Yes. Yeah? Okay, awesome. So that's the hand raise, all right? And then that is the framework.